I will be doing a review and a quick summary of the return of the 8th class mage. So the story follows Ian Page, the strongest mage in the world, and Ian, as a high class mage of the Magic Tower, served under Prince and later King Ragnar Greenriver. Ian and Ragnar were very close friends, and it was because of Ian's support that Ragnar even succeeded in becoming king after the War of Unification. After Ragnar becomes king, Ian, unable to deal with the guilt of all the things he's done in the war and the people he's murdered, decides to retire and live in seclusion in his hometown. Eventually, people around Ragnar convince him that Ian, as an 8th class mage, is simply too dangerous to be left alive, which then leads Ragnar to visit Ian and succeed in poisoning him. After their one last heart-wrenching conversation together, where Ragnar tells him to not forgive him for what he has done, he leaves Ian to die alone. In his last moments, Ian decides to use an untested dagger that has a time spell embedded on it in hopes it will work and he will be able to go back in time. The time spell works and Ian goes 30 years back in time to when he was 12. So we spent around 20 chapters with Ian as a child, so I'll just quickly go through the most notable things that happened during his childhood years, which first of all is the mana test that Ian had to do, since basically every child aged 12 has to test if they're able to use mana, since mages are sort of the foundation of the country's power. During the test, Ian shows he's already able to use mana, cast spells, and even double cast, which is really a big deal, so the royal family and the Arrow Tower are immediately informed of this. And the Emperor then sends the Crown Prince to bring Ian Page back to the Imperial Palace. And while all of that is happening at the capital, Ian and his mother are invited to stay at Lord Mulligan's estate while they wait for the Crown Prince. During his stay there, Ian saves Lord Mulligan from the goblins. Afterwards, he visits a nearby village, and there he comes across the greatest alchemist in history, Douglas Hammond, who actually created a poison that would have ended up killing him. He actually prevents his father from dying, and he ends up hiring his father and taking Douglas himself under his wing. The Crown Prince arrives and they have a banquet at which Ian reveals a spy for the Coldwood Empire, since he has a plan to make a name for himself by selling her out. After that, they have a quick journey and then they finally arrive at the capital city where Ian meets the Emperor, and a week later he's also invited to the Arrow Tower where he's tested for his mana capacity, and they conclude him to be a 4th class mage. He has a spar with Helen and he marginally joins the Crown Prince's faction. And that's basically all for his childhood years, because we then have a 5 years time skip in which Ian succeeded in climbing to 5th class and he finally becomes like a full-fledged mage. And he also goes on his first ever mission, and that mission was actually dealing with sort of like a monster invasion that was happening. And after finishing his first mission, he finally also entered 6th rank. After which, he helps the first prince of negotiating between the two countries over unclaimed territory. Everything goes well, they go back to the capital and they celebrate. And at the end, we also see Ragnar and the Tower Lord scheming on how to take Ian down. Ian starts trying to find information about dark magic that has been resurfacing, and he also accidentally learns about a cult called the Order of Dragons. We see the Tower Lord setting a trap for Ian and planning to use dark magic to turn Ian into a puppet, which doesn't work because Ian is a 6th class mage while the Tower Lord is only a 5th class. And so Ian exposes the Tower Lord for all of his crimes. He gets executed, and Ragnar loses most of his power base. Afterwards, the Emperor himself gives Ian the title of the next Tower Lord. Then we are introduced to a new villain, a last Dragonian who has been sealed away by the first Emperor for the last 300 years. And so the cult of dragons, which many nobles are apparently part of, lure Ragnar to the place where the last Dragonian is sealed. And there he uses his blood to unlock the seal and joins forces with our new villain, Evantus. Their first course of action is to get Ragnar on the throne, so they have someone poison the Emperor, and even though he does survive, he ends up in critical condition. The culprit is immediately apprehended, but Ian obviously doesn't believe that it's really him, so he goes to visit him in prison and he reads his memories, and he discovers that he was being controlled by dark magic. And since he couldn't cancel dark magic, he realizes that there is a stronger mage than him out there. He immediately sends his family away and wipes his memories of where they're going, and later he goes to confront Ragnar. There he also comes face to face with Evantus, and Evantus tries to brainwash him, and he succeeds, which is actually Ian's plan because he wants to learn more about what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. And afterwards, Ragnar has him publicly declare his support for him as the next emperor, and then the crown prince gets smuggled out of the palace. Summer saves. Obviously, he's not really safe there anymore. And later on, the princess, the crown prince's sister, uses the artifact that Ian sent to her beforehand so that she can dispel the black magic. Ian's plan afterwards is to continue pretending to be brainwashed because he wants to find a way to reseal Avantus. But then the princess Haley gives him a sealed journal that was the first emperor's that has been sealed for many, many years and no one has been able to unseal it. And he figures out that the password for journal is in dragon tongue. And he speaks the words written there in dragon tongue and time suddenly stops. And we finally find out what is truly happening and what truly happened in the past. So Ian enters this sort of dimension where he meets his father, who is actually this golden dragon that has this power of authority. So even though he wasn't allowed to intervene in mortal affairs, he did 300 years ago during the war, since he didn't want to see the humans wiped out. And his sort of penalty for doing that was losing his form and having to spend the time that he had left as a human, during which he met Ian's mother and they had Ian, and that power of authority was sort of transferred to Ian as well. It is then that Ian's father activates the power of authority in him so that he would be able to beat Evantus and that he could continue trying to completely wipe out the black magic in the world. Before the final fight, at chapter 73, we have a flashback to the past where we see a bit more about Ragnar's and Ian relationship, and we see what really led Ragnar to do what he did. Ian obviously wins in his power against Evantus using the power of authority. And then we finally get to the conclusion of Ian and Ragnar's story. And before killing him, Ian shows Ragnar all of his memories of their time together. Ian finally succeeds in his revenge and he gets the closure that he has been looking for. After which, Ian leaves to travel the world, and next thing we know, we get a 8 years time skip after Ian finally comes back for the Crown Prince's coronation. And while there, he also asks Haley, the princess, to marry him. So that's the end of the story. And I would say the ending is pretty wholesome. It's a very happy ending. I would give it an 8 out of 10. The story isn't too long. It only has 83 chapters. It can literally be read in 2 days. And the art is very well done. And the story never really strays from like the main sort of storyline, which is Ian's revenge against Ragnar and sort of learning to live and making peace with all the things he himself has done in the past. And I think the conclusion is just very well done. And like I said, the ending is a very happy ending in the end. So Ian gets what he wants and, he learns to live his life again.